Hello, everybody. This is the second episode to our podcast, Translating Love, with me, Wolfgang.
And Danielle.
Right. So the first podcast or the first episode, the first part of the first episode, essentially, we talked about our story and how we met, and that I came back in 2016 to see you.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to basically start off there.
So yeah, as we said in the last episode, I moved to Portland with my brother. At that time, I was also married, so I moved with my husband at the time.
Both, as we said, we both were in relationships at that time, so we had to figure out that first in order to make things happen, or in order to go forward with our relationship or with the potential relationship we saw. And so it was not only important to us, but also important for us to our spouses back then, or to our your husband and to my girlfriend, that we essentially did the right thing. And I think you were still working through things and you weren't really sure where it's going, and you still gave it a shot. My husband and I had a hard relationship towards the end. A hard upbringing. No, an upbringing is how you're brought up, how you're raised. Yeah, your relationship had an hard upbringing.
Okay, sure. My relationship had a hard upbringing. But that's not true, because I had a good upbringing and a hard... downbringing. And, yeah, sure.
Okay.
But yes, we're not joking about divorce. But,
Actually, we do sometimes.
Sometimes we do, but that's in our own little, our own little way. Sometimes I call him my trophy husband. Little fun things like that.
Right.
But anyways, we had a good relationship. He was my high school sweetheart. He was a year younger than me. And so we had this really good relationship in the beginning, but we were young and we were together for a total of 6 years. But after 4 years, we said, okay, or 5 years, we said, okay, what's the next step? And we decided, okay, let's get married. And it wasn't necessarily the best choice or the best timing for that to happen, and definitely not for the right reasons. And so at that point, we'd basically been more friends than in a relationship by the time we got to when we got married. So, and it just kind of went downhill from there. So I won't go into any long story about that relationship, but essentially it was a very one-sided relationship towards the end, where I was putting in a lot of effort to try to make it a better relationship, and I wasn't getting any effort in return, or minimal effort in return, in terms of a lot of things.
I mean, I think it's one of those relationships where you, and I count myself towards those two, that you don't really put that much work into that relationship, in the sense of, okay, where do I want to go with the relationship? And also, do we have problems, and do we want to work on those problems? When you're young, you just don't do that. You don't consider, okay, let's go to a therapist, or let's go see someone who is a specialist in terms of relationships or whatever. So I think everyone, or almost everyone, had that one relationship, or maybe is in one relationship right now, where one of the two or both of them are not putting in enough work.
Or not willing to put in any
work.
Because
of whatever reason. And I think that's... it happens a lot that, okay, the next you're together for 5 or 8 years or whatever, and the next step is getting married. And then, of course, it breaks apart because the foundation is just not there. It's just not there.
Well, and in my circumstance, it was also that there was a lot of factors that you kind of, or at least I kind of saw where the relationship could be in the future. And I didn't like what I saw because, in the last episode, I mentioned that I went through a pretty significant trauma, and my husband at the time was nowhere near supportive during that time. And that was a big eye-opener for me. And there were a lot of things like that. And I was kind of tired of...
to be honest, but also, in his defense a little bit, because he knew, of course, that the relationship is not going well. And
Sure.
There was a lot of stuff going on. So in his defense a little bit, he wasn't super, supportive because, sure, it's not an excuse, but I think there was a lot of things going on in his side of the relationship right now. So
Absolutely.
I think it was really hard to find the support in that time.
And I'm not at all saying that it was one-sided in the sense that he did everything wrong and I did everything right, because that's not how it is in any relationship.
Right, yeah.
But just in terms of my own reasons why the relationship wasn't working for me,
Right.
there were plenty of things I'm sure that were not okay for him that I did or that I said, or that just things that just didn't work between the two of us.
Right.
And that's every relationship. It's two-sided. It's never just on one person.
But yeah, I mean, you came to Austria in October 2016 for a month.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a really good time.
This was right in the heat of when I was going through the divorce. So it had already kind of started, and we knew that that's where it was going. And it was kind of this weird in-between time. For those of you who have been through one or are going through one, it's very time-consuming.
Yeah, and it's, of course, really exhausting.
Very exhausting.
But I was single since that summer, basically, and I was still like trying to give myself time. I didn't want to like basically throw myself into another relationship. So there was a little time period in between where we didn't really know. Okay, I mean, we weren't together at this time, but we knew, of course, we want to basically go after that relationship, or go after that what could be a relationship. So after that month, you basically were still unclear. Okay, we want to do this, but I don't know how and when. And I think that was a critical time because you went back in November or starting November in 2016.
Mm-hmm. Mid-November.
Back to Portland. And then for Christmas, you went back to your hometown, Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But then I think short before Christmas, I think we decided that you come here.
Yep.
Because I was studying. I just started my master's, so I couldn't go. So,
and that was also, I mean, especially like, bleh, that was also a really defining moment for our relationship, because you're thrown kind of into these really insanely hard situations right from the start of your relationship. And so
yeah,
I think it's a testament to how much you want to be in a relationship with somebody.
Yeah, I don't think those decisions are hard, but they're significant because you have two options. Okay, I'm studying my master's and I have to stay here, and then you stay there, you stay in America, and then we have like a long distance relationship, which is awful.
It's awful.
It's the worst, and we will go into detail in another podcast about that, but it's awful. It's not fun. I mean, it's possible, sure, but it's in the long run, it's not. It's not
ideal.
No, it's not. It's not at all.
Although I would disagree when you say that it's not so much a hard decision, because on my side it was an extremely hard decision because I was the one who moved.
No, sure, but no, I don't mean but I don't mean in that sense. I mean, it was a decision that was significant because it had to mean, okay, someone has to leave, or someone has to leave things behind. Exactly. And also someone has to sacrifice something. That's hard. That thing is hard.
And we had to have, and it was a hard conversation to have. I guess that's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to support each other, and we didn't want to make the other one sacrifice too much, but it comes down to someone's going to have to. And for me, the deciding factor was I really asked him how badly he wanted to study and how important it was to him, because for me, that was more important. Me moving was hard, but in a lot of ways didn't affect my future. I mean, it does in a lot of ways, but in terms of my career, in terms of that stuff, that's all stuff that can be figured out. But this is his career. And so I wanted him to do something that he loves. And so I think that was the biggest factor for me. Once you decided, it was I kind of put it on him. If he wanted to study, then that's it. I would come here. If he didn't want to study, then we can come to a different decision.
Yeah. And then essentially you moved here in...
End of January
2017.
That was essentially his Christmas present, was that I bought my one-way ticket to Austria and decided to move here. I mean, we'd already made the decision, so I didn't decide that for you, but we had talked about it and I pulled the trigger.
But yeah, then of course, it's not that easy moving from a different country, not in the European Union. You need to have a visa. You need to have a permit to stay here. And yeah, it's not that easy in Austria. Let's just say it like that. You have to...
Let's put it this way. In Germany, you can get a visa just for studying German.
Yeah,
You
right.
can literally get a language visa, and they're like, yeah, come here, stay here. Just prove that you're taking German classes, and
I mean, it's not...
you can stay.
It's not that easy, but it's
essentially that easy.
it's pretty easy compared to Austria.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had to figure that out. And so as it turned out that you can't apply for a visa here, so she had to go back and apply in America in the Austrian embassy, which she did.
That was in New York.
Right.
So I had to, the Austrian embassy, there's only four, I think, in the US.
Yeah.
And you have to go to the designated one for your state. And so for Wisconsin, you have to go to New York. So I literally had to fly home and fly to New York to apply for the visa.
Yeah.
Fly back home.
Then wait for the visa to be approved and then come back, which happened in May 2017. We came back in May 2017.
Guys, so essentially I just had to go home for a month, but it was a very tight month.
Yeah.
The visa got approved, I think, a week before my flight was supposed to come back.
Yeah. And yeah, she got the visa for being an au pair, which worked out pretty well. Mm-hmm. I mean, the first family was not optimal.
But it was enough to let me stay here, and that's all that mattered for me.
And the second family was awesome, and we're still friends with them. And yeah, it worked out pretty well. But of course, the au pair visa is also only a year.
You can do it for a year, and then I think you can do it again, but only after 5 years has passed.
Yeah, except if you're...
Unless you're 27 or older.
Yeah. So,
and I was 26 when I moved here.
Right. So that was not an option. So after that year, which was basically March 2018, we had to figure out a different way for us to be together and not being back to like a long distance relationship. And I was still studying. Like I'm using that as an excuse in every part of the story. I was still studying, so I couldn't do anything. But she was still studying. So we had to figure out...
No, you were still studying.
Oh, yeah, I was still studying. I'm getting confused. That's what podcasts do to you. So yeah, we had to figure out another way. And at this point in our relationship, we were pretty like... I don't know. How would you describe it? Comfortable and also like close.
And it also, at this point, we also knew like, okay, this is something that we want to continue. We had already lived together for a year.
Yeah.
And moving in with somebody at the start of your relationship is insane. It's absolutely insane.
We will go into that too.
Yes, we will. But I think
insane,
it's also probably the greatest test you can have for any relationship. And if you survive that, I think you can survive almost anything.
We're not saying move in with someone right away.
No, we're not. But if it comes to that point for anyone, if you decide to do that.
I think what's cool or what I take away of that whole experience is don't wait too long to move in with someone. Or not just that. I don't think it's don't wait too long. I think it's just there's no rule. There's no rule.
There's no rule of how long you have to wait.
I think it's if you feel comfortable enough and if you love each other and if you want it, then do it and try it out because it helps your relationship to grow and also it helps you to understand each other much, much better on a much deeper level.
Or it shows you the exact opposite,
of
where
course.
It's like, okay, I could never do this long term.
But that's
also not bad.
Exactly. That's what you get out of the whole experience. You see, okay, I want to be with the person. I want to continue that. Or fuck that, I'm out of here. So yeah, that happened. Or what that happened? We moved in together right at the beginning, obviously, because she was nowhere in a place to get her own place at the time. So we moved in together. And then after a year, we had to figure out another way or another plan for the visa. And yeah, we got married, not because of the visa.
Yeah, that's always a hard conversation because I never like to say we got married because otherwise I would have had to go back.
Right.
So essentially it is partly that, but for us it was we knew that's where we wanted to go. We knew we wanted to get married. We knew we wanted to give this, the lifetime shot, whatever you want to call it.
I think for me it's important to say that I'm coming from a divorced, like my parents are divorced.
I am too.
And I had always since my parents got divorced, I had always this like stigma on marriage, and I knew that I'm never going to marry anyone But when I met Danielle, I threw that overboard and basically went back to, okay, I could see myself being married to her. And when the time came around, there was a question, okay, do I want to continue that relationship and try to see where it's going? Or do I want to not, or basically go back to, okay, we go to Skyping or calling each other like 2 hours a day, if even, living completely different lives in completely different time zones.
And we did that for a while, and it was horrible.
So the decision was basically getting married or not, or going back to something that we didn't like at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we would have gotten back to that, I think the relationship would have not lasted, because...
Do you really think that?
Yeah, I think that. I really think that. Because,
see, I don't necessarily think that, because I would have only had to be back for 6 months.
No, sure. But I mean in the long, like if it would have been 2 years or something like that.
Oh, sure. No, that never would have worked.
Yeah. So
I thought you meant the 6 month thing wouldn't have worked.
No, if there was like a time frame, it's like, okay, I can do that. But longer than, I don't know, a year, I would not.
It's miserable.
It's not.
No matter how much you love somebody, that's a miserable way to be in a relationship.
Yeah, it's not. Especially if there's a time zone involved.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we got married in March of 2018.
Yeah, we did. We planned it. He proposed to me on Christmas Eve, and then we got married 3 months later. Which
was actually pretty cool.
It actually was. I mean, it's stressful, but it's always stressful to plan a wedding. And so we always, like, people were like.
Yeah, people are like, how can you do that so fast? That's not possible. You forget things, blah, 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 blah. But I think it was... And people can back me up on that. One of the best weddings ever. It was a lot of fun, and it was just basically what it should be, a fun celebration of two people who love each other. And yeah, we didn't have any fancy bullshit, but we didn't need it.
Yeah, and that's the exact thing. There are so many people, I know so many people who take a year or 2 years to plan a wedding. And sometimes it's necessary, depending on where you are. Sometimes places are booked up that you really want to have, or bands are booked up. But honestly, nobody cares.
Yeah.
You won't remember any of that. You're not going to remember how amazing the location was, unless it's truly like phenomenal.
Yeah.
But if it's just a banquet room somewhere, who cares? Who cares where it is? You can decorate any place to look fabulous.
Yeah. Trust me, if you have like, if you have fun people there, if you have good music, if you have like something entertaining, like we did little movies and we prepared stuff for the guests, and guests prepared something for us. And then we had all those Austrian traditions.
Which are fabulous.
Which are
maybe we'll talk about those
really
at some
fun. But yeah, we had, and your mom came, and two of your best friends came. And it was just like this lovely day with people you love, and they support you, and it was just the best thing.
Can I also just say to anyone out there planning a wedding, you are paying for people to eat there. Do not spend so much money on food, because no one will remember what food they had or how it tasted.
Right.
I promise you.
Right.
I remember one thing that we offered at our one. I don't remember how it tasted. I liked it.
I remember the cake, though.
The cake was, I mean, go big on the cake. You'll always remember the cake. Yeah. But the food, as long as it's
don't serve
edible,
them shit. Don't serve them shit.
As long as it's edible and you are compliant to everyone's needs, if they're vegan or if they have allergies or vegetarian, whatever. That's all that matters.
Yeah. So yeah, we got married, and now we are almost married 2 years.
Yeah, pretty soon.
Yeah. And we're going still strong.
I think so.
Yeah. And we started couples therapy, which is also nice. Not because we needed it, but more so to grow, to get more perspective on different aspects.
I think there's an overall stigma on therapy in general, but with couples therapy too, a lot of people think that if you go to couples therapy, something must be terribly wrong with your relationship.
Yeah, I disagree.
I totally disagree. I think it's the best thing you can do for your relationship is go talk to somebody who's completely unbiased, who doesn't know either of you, and you can just talk about stuff. you don't always have to have, I mean, we've gone, I think, 3 or 4 times, and we never go in really with a topic in mind. We just start talking.
Yeah.
And sometimes things come up
yeah.
where it's like, oh, that would be good to talk about, or let's dive into that.
Yeah.
And I think it's really opened up our communication. It's really opened up, like, she's given us so many good, helpful tips on how to better communicate with each other in terms of like arguments and things like that, and to avoid them.
Yeah.
It's fabulous, and I recommend it to anyone.
So that was our second podcast.
Yeah.
Or basically the part 2 of our story. Yeah, I'm actually pretty satisfied with the outcome.
Me too.
Outcome. But yeah, I hope you liked it. And please give us any feedback if there is anything we should talk about, or maybe if you like it or not like it, and maybe tell us what you like or not like.
And the nice thing I think about our topic or our theme of our podcast is that we are open to suggestion for really anything you want to talk about, or anything you want us to talk about.
Right.
So it's pretty open. So if you have suggestions, if you have questions, we're happy to answer questions.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah.
So, bye.
Bye.